Hi, BookTube. So I thought this evening I would film a literary ramblings. I don't know if I'm trying to work on one more thing to finish for the month of August. Well, actually, I probably could get a few more things in depending on the length of the books, but I'm reading a lot of big books right now. I'm working on, but as far as things I could probably get done other than these, I am working on I'm also working on this Four Great Plays by Heinrich Ibsen. This has the A Doll's House, which is about a marriage during the Victorian era. Sorry, my mom was just texting me. During the a marriage during the Victorian era, and they're having the husband just got a promotion to be a manager of the bank, and the wife has um made got money from a friend of her husband's, and unfortunately he had the her husband had agreed to had did not like his work ethic, his friend's work ethic, and thought he's taking advantage of him, so now he's going to fire him, and actually he's going to give the job to his wife's friend who is in need of a job. But then the guy shows up at their house and threatens the wife and is like, if you don't talk to your husband and get my job back, well then I'm going to basically ruin your life, ruin your family's life, and this is so far it's really interesting. There's four. I'm not gonna read. Obviously, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I mean, maybe I could read all four plays to finish out this month, but I'm only gonna read A Doll's House. Maybe start another play. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. I definitely want to read more plays. I want to get into plays. I want to get into plays more, and if you're watching my videos, recently I got a collection of 4 of Shakespeare's tragedies, which I realized sometime after I filmed that I implying I didn't know if there were any other tragedies or something by Shakespeare, or if those were the only most. And I just realized there's also Romeo and Juliet, which is one of his most famous ones, and so obviously there's more Shakespeare's written more tragedies. But anyway, so I want to get this done before I want to get this at least one of these plays read before the end of the month. And I'm on Act 3 of A Doll's House, so I don't think I have anything to worry about that, especially because I'm off tomorrow, so I can finish that up either this evening, or tomorrow. And then, like I said, I might start another one. I've been kind of inspired on, but an interesting reading mood. Like, I decided to open this up and read one of the, get back into reading A Doll's House again. And then I also wanted to, there was the whole desire to all of a sudden get into Shakespeare. Although that stemmed from, Tom Hiddleston being the Shakespeare nerd and watching, interviews with him obsessively. And I feel like in a lot of interviews he finds a way to bring Shakespeare into it. But then that also might just be his Thor interviews. And I had the desire to finally read this one. I haven't started this yet. I just put a bookmark in there called, I think you pronounce it Jacques the Fatalist. So it's a kind of a medieval, or maybe Shakespeare's times, that play going by the cover. Although I don't know if this, because I feel like a lot of times with classics they just choose whatever they think would fit what the play is about as far as a cover. And a lot of times it's artwork that kind of potentially could represent one of the characters. Let me see if it says the date. It doesn't say the date on the back. but it's a master, a master and his apprentice. And I think it's from the apprentice's point of view. Um, but I'm gonna read that soon. But like I said, I felt like since I had already started A Doll's House a few months ago, I figured will finish this out first, read that one first before I get to this one, and I might, But yeah, so I would've just had some interesting inspiration to read certain things that that I've wouldn't normally be I feel like I surprise people like my parents when I show interest in certain things like Shakespeare or something because for the longest time I've always been like a fantasy go-to, young adult fantasy, Twilight type fantasy, Twilight or Twilight or the Shadowhunter world and stuff like that. But I've definitely as I've gotten older, watching booktube videos and making my own booktube videos, I've become more aware of different types of things, and I think my tastes have matured. I think that's for a lot of people. Your tastes grow and change, and sometimes things when you were a teenager or a kid that you wouldn't have been interested then, all of a sudden you're interested in them now. But this also includes any of the people. Which is the little thing on here, the little description here says Ibsen's vigorous attack on the public opinion. The Wild Duck, a poignant drama of lost illusions. Ghost, the startling portrayal of a family destroyed by disease and infidelity. So the only one I think I have slightly heard of is A Doll's House. Before I bought this and read it, but I had heard Ibsen's name before, actually in a musical. So that was kind of it's so weird how sometimes you hear about famous people, famous writers, in some random way, and then all of a sudden you see and you're like, oh, I'm familiar with that. I'm gonna look at it and see if maybe I'd be interested in it. So I'm gonna finish up A Doll's House, and I don't know what I'm probably will go in order and just read whatever is next. Start whatever is next. Which I guess is Ghost. Ghost would be the next play. So but that's the one I'm working on right now. But okay, as far as what I've actually finished so far this month, I finally finished my reread of Winter, which is the fourth book in the Lunar Chronicles series. And this is about the Snow White inspired character. And she lives on Luna and has chosen not to use her lunar gift, which if you don't use your gift, your mind, your mind manipulation gift, then it can mess with your mental state and make you what is considered crazy. And Winter refused to use her gift because no matter how she uses it, it will still, even if she has good intentions with it, it could turn out bad. It could still potentially hurt someone. And we kind of find out, we learn of the moment in Ferris, the prequel book, about what led to Winter feeling this way, what event, which is talked about in this book, but we get the details of that event in the book Ferris. I really like Winter as the main character. I love how she's seen as a little crazy and people underestimate her, but she's actually a lot wiser than people give her credit for, and she really genuinely cares about these people. She's kind to them. She wants to help them no matter what. And, they love her. They genuinely love her for her. While Lavana, she has to manipulate people to love her, and she doesn't understand that that's not real love. They don't really love her. She just thinks they do, and she's keeps telling, when Cinder is trying, is saying that you guys don't know what I've had to sacrifice, what I've had to give up to run to have this throne, to earn the leader, the role of queen. And she's almost pitiable as a character, and she tries to take away the love that Winter has earned from the people of Luna. She makes her ugly, gives her scars. She just finds ways to get people to try to ruin the reputation of that Winter has developed. And through it all, Winter, is strong and perseveres. I mean, she breaks down a couple times, but she still remains strong and steady, and eventually is able to pull herself back together. And of course, I love all the other characters. Lavon is even crazier in this book. She's finally lost it, I feel like, in this final book. She's completely nuts in this book and is desperate to keep her throne and make sure neither Cinder or Winter steal her throne from her. I also, I like Jason, which I still don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, because other people pronounce it differently, but I always thought it was pronounced Jason, just spelled differently than how we in the real world spell it. It really, it kind of bugs me, the description, because, I know the book is called Winter, but the back description, so I understand why the back description focuses on Winter, but she's only half of the book. Because this connects all of the other three. This is the final piece to the puzzle of the series. So it's not just focused, we don't just get Winter's story, we focus a lot still on the others, Cinder and Scarlet and Cress. So it's just, but I guess because this book is called Winter, and Winter's supposedly the main character, which, she is the main character, but she's not the main character. So I just feel like, the back description should be written a little differently, not just focusing on Winter and putting the other characters as an afterthought. But this, just like my first time reading, was really fun and a really cool, very intense. We meet a few new characters, like we met Wolf's mom, which we get a little bit more of her in Stars Above, the series of mini short stories, the short stories collection. And I don't know what else I could say about, I just really had a good time. It's very fast paced. I was able to get through quickly, even though it's a really chunky book. And it was fun to get back into this, to get back into this world and finish it out. Like I said, I still have not gone around to the graphic novel Cinder, which is about Aiko's character during the aftermath of what happens in this book, in this main series, like how she deals with what her next role in this whole thing is. And I feel like there's a character that Aiko kind of has an encounter with that I feel like I'm wondering if he plays a role in the graphic novels, because for some reason I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna have a relationship with Aiko beyond just, you're a disgusting android. But I know they have new covers for these books, but I still kind of love the old covers. And I always feel I feel like I can't justify just buying these, because I've already rebought these books once, because I gave my original copies to Larissa. And so now I'm like, so I ended up rebuying them because I had been, I loved the series the first time and I wanted to reread it. So I ended up rebuying it, and I just can't justify doing that for the third time. So, but yeah, it was fun to reread that. Okay, so the next book I finished, I think it was this one that I finished next. So I recently watched Jen Campbell's video, one of her vlogs from a few weeks ago, where she was, and she's not the only person whose vlog I watched doing this, but because I think I also Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts also did this, where she did a vlog reading all of her short books while at the same time baking bread. That's not what Jean did not. Jean didn't do the baking bread thing, but she read her shortest books. I think it was her. I'm not 100% sure on that, but anyway, that doesn't matter. And I kind of was inspired. I love that idea of going through, especially because I was feeling guilty that I have so many of my books that are still not the pages are sticking out, and I don't have the spines turned so you can see the spines. So I made a list while still watching her vlog actually. I made a list of all the short books that I have, and that are at least the books I think are short, and that includes like ones that are like collections of stories in one book, like bind ups, like some of the plays collections I have, and the copy of Sleepy Hollow, I have that in a collection of stories by Ivory Washington, which includes Sleepy Hollow, Rip Van Winkle, and several other stories. I don't know all of them. But anyway, so I went ahead and this one is on there as well. And this was one I got for Christmas a couple years ago. And it was around the time, more than a few years ago, around the time that Beauty and the Beast, the live action came out. So this is kind of a self-promotion of Beauty and the Beast, the live action version. And I did start to read it at the time when I got it, but then I stopped reading it, and I don't know why. There's nothing wrong with this book. It's good. But finally I decided to read the whole thing this time because it's short. It's like a little over 200, I think. Let me look. Oh, wait. Oh, no, actually it's a little over... Oh, no, never mind. I'm right. It's a little over... It's like 201 pages. And this is kind of a diary of Belle's, where it's a list of all the books she would have read and her favorite quotes from those, or I should say literary text, or literary works, because it also includes some Shakespeare plays as well, and some quotes from them and her thoughts on them. And I feel like as a fan of whether you came to be via the live action or the animated, or even the play for that matter, I think this is a nice thing to have. A nice little thing to add to your collection. It's very cute, and I like that it lists all, and I have thought about that. What books would Belle would have liked? I always thought about making a video of books I think Belle would have loved. Whether they came out during her time or not. And like some of the modern books that came out today that she might enjoy if she lived or existed today. And I've also thought about like what if the other princesses in the Disney canon, if they read, what books would they enjoy reading. But it's always kind of hard because I always am second guessing myself, wondering am I right in that? Would that person read those books? So it was kind of nice. It's nice to have this. It's very cute, a nice list of the books that she would have read, and I like the quotes. And then there is a little brief of her thoughts on those books. And I understand it was a self-promotion for the live-action movie. I thought that was really cool. I also like the artwork, and I'm probably one of the few people who's not creeped out by the live-action version of the Enchanted Objects. I know everyone's like, oh, they're so creepy, and I prefer the cute animated versions. But I don't get why people find them so creepy. I did not find them creepy, although the movie I think is a little more self-aware about that, because like when Maurice first gets to the castle and Chip decides to, being a kid, he starts talking to Maurice. He's like, I was told I'm not supposed to move. Sorry. Because he moves a little bit. And, because it might be scary. And then Maurice's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And then takes off running. So I think they're a little more, I guess they kind of do get, but I personally didn't find them creepy. But that's the drawings that are in here in this one, but it's, it's really a nice design. Belle's handwriting. It's just a really cute thing to have. Okay, but here's my problem. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit older and more mature as a reader. Like, my tastes have changed. So maybe I shouldn't say more mature, but that my tastes have evolved and changed over the years. And it just, I still thought it was cute and enjoyed it, but it just wasn't as, it didn't wow me. It didn't excite me. It was just something, a short book that I had for a few years, and it has to do with my favorite Disney movies. And like I said, I did like it. It was cute, but it just wasn't, and I was a little disappointed by, of course this is a small book, as you can tell, but I was a little disappointed by the Belle's responses. I feel like she would write more than just that, but it felt like it was kind of like oh, this character, this is very fitting to my current situation, living as a prisoner in the castle, and, trying to make the best of my situation. Oh, Lumiere would like this quote, or Miss Potts, this quote fits Miss Potts so well. It's like, well, duh, like that. It felt very, thank you, Captain Obvious. So it was almost, like I said, just like that, whereas well, clearly this is to promote the movie, and it was very obvious. And I don't, like I said, maybe because my tastes have grown as a reader, I'm a little bit older, I'm 31 years old, and I feel but I think if my niece, Charlotte, is when she's old enough, gets into this kind of stuff, then, which I hope she does. I hope she likes Beauty and the Beast and likes reading and stuff like her brothers do. Well, then maybe I'll pass this on to her, because I think she would like it a little bit, Oh, and this was only this was $12.99. So, of course, it might have been cheaper. It might have been. So was this? It was okay. It says forward by Linda Warvelton. So I thought it was written by her, but it just says forward by her. So I don't know, featuring a forward by her. So I don't know who it's by. But I know she's involved, and she was the original screenwriter for the animated movie. So I'm glad that it was cool that she was involved. But like I said, I think someone who's a preteen or a teenager, maybe more so a preteen, would really like this if they're into Beauty and the Beast and stuff. But I'm glad I read it, and I will keep it for nostalgia purposes. And like I said, my mom bought it for me, and I always feel guilty when I end up giving away stuff that I was given as a present and stuff. This might have been a birthday gift. I don't remember. But anyway. So yeah, that's the other one. And then after that, I finally finished My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. This is the second Daphne du Maurier book I've read. So this is actually, apparently, I think this is the only Daphne du Maurier book that's from a man's perspective, I think, where our main narrator is a male, because I remember one of the booktubers I watched was she was saying, oh, she was surprised that this, and had forgotten this was the main narrator for this book is a man. So I'm wondering if all of Daphne du Maurier's books, with the exception of this one, are from a female perspective, which makes sense because a lot of times female authors write mostly from female perspectives, because it's their perspective I think we understand best, and his name is Philip Ashley, and his parents died when he was little. He was like a toddler, I think. And he's living with his older cousin, Ambrose Ashley, who is very, keeps to himself, lives alone, very solitary man, very academic-minded, has very strong opinions, is not too fond of women. In fact, he doesn't even have any female servants. He thinks women are just a nuisance. And he kind of passes on his beliefs onto Philip, who adores him and worships him. So every year, Ambrose goes on a summer trip to Italy. So one year he goes, and he meets their distant cousin, Rachel. And he is immediately taken with her, and he starts falling in love with her, and is writing letters to Philip telling him about this. And he ends up eventually marrying her, and right away Philip is very jealous of Rachel and feels like Rachel's taking Ambrose away from him, especially because Ambrose marries her and is like, we can't come home right now. But then Ambrose's letters get a little bit weird and a little like he's afraid of something, and he's starting to not trust Rachel and get paranoid. And he even eventually writes letters asking Philip to come rescue him. And when Philip gets to Italy, Rachel is gone, and Ambrose is dead. And begrudgingly, Philip returns to England, and he finds out, and he's ready to hate on Rachel, and even though he's told by, I think, their lawyer that he shouldn't. And then he finds out eventually that Rachel has decided to come to England, to Cornwall. I think it's Cornwall that they live, to visit. And all of a sudden, when Philip meets her, he realizes that she's very different than what he expected, and he starts to like her, and eventually falling in love with her, or at least becoming very infatuated with her. And she makes a very powerful impact on his life, and he becomes obsessively in love with her. While his close friends, are a little unwary of her and don't trust her. But yeah, at the same time, some of his close friends, but at the same time, everybody in town that knows them also kind of starts to like Rachel. So this was very interesting. We get, like I said, I think this is her only book that's from a male perspective. I don't know, don't take my word for it, because this is the only second one. It's just, like I said, that one booktuber, I cannot remember her name, was like, I took her surprise that it was narrated by a male as saying, well, maybe Daphne du Maurier most of the time writes from female perspectives. But anyway, Philip just got on my nerves, though. I did not like his character. He was a very frustrating character. He was a very naive character, and there were so many times I wanted to shake him and hit him with one of his books and be like, you dumbass. And especially because there was a character that everyone assumed that, Rachel notices this, that there's a woman who he is very close with, is friends with, and everyone's thinking, oh, him and this woman, Louise, they'll probably get married and stuff. And even Rachel says that. And he's like, oh no, she's more like a sister to me. I can't stand, I don't see her in that way. And eventually, when she tries to help him with the whole Rachel situation, because she expresses suspicion about Rachel, he is very annoyed by Louise, and cannot stand her, and does not like how she's ruining his relationship with Rachel. And I'm pretty sure she had a crush on Philip. I think she was in love with Philip and would be happy to marry him. And I felt so bad for her because Philip was being such a jerk to her. of course, he was very much under Rachel's spell, and speaking of with Rachel, I don't know how I felt about her. Because on the one hand, she seems like she's manipulating Philip, and she's a bad person, and you can't trust her. But then on the other hand, she seems like maybe she's innocent. Maybe she is a victim. Like, I don't know if I should like her or not. And I feel like the ending itself is very ambiguous, too. That's all I'm going to say. It's a very ambiguous ending. At least to me, anyway. So I didn't know if, she was a bad person or not. I'm not sure about how I feel. I don't know if I like her or not, and all the other characters were very interesting. Now, Philip, yeah, he annoyed me, but at the same time, he's an interesting character, and it's interesting to read from his perspective. And I think if a character frustrates you, then they're a good character. If they can have that impact to where they frustrate you and annoy you, and there's a lot of characters that do that. So, if I get annoyed by characters, not because they're a bad character, it's because they're an interesting character, and I'm engaged with them, and I have a strong emotional attachment to that character, whether it's negative or positive emotions. It's also, of course, the writing is beautiful. I still prefer, like other people. I still prefer Rebecca at the moment. Now, going by the trailer, I was expecting, because I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer, I was expecting this to be a little creepier, but it didn't feel that creepy. I mean, it was a little suspenseful. Like I said, I didn't know how I felt about, Rachel's character, and there was a little bit of a little bit of tension in the book. Like, is Philip being manipulated, or is he just being dumb on his own and falling for Rachel? That I don't know if I just do not know if she's a bad guy or not. But I think that kind of story is always very interesting to read. A story that, is a bit ambiguous and you don't know. Now, there are some stories that's going to be a little too ambiguous and you just don't understand at all. That's part of why I DNF'd Under Western Eyes by Joseph Conrad. I feel like it was a little too much. I didn't understand. I didn't know whose perspective we were in, which characters it was, and I was watching a review when I was debating about what I was going to do if I was going to finish that book and continue trying Joseph Conrad. A lot of people said that that Under Western Eyes they feel like it was, Joseph Conrad saying he's not a fan of Dostoevsky, and this was his equivalent to Crime and Punishment. Like, he's like, I can do it better than you, nah, 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 nah. And I have to disagree. Like, I got more invested in Crime and Punishment. I was, the character Raskolnikov was more sympathetic to me and more interesting. And I feel like it didn't help that it was from, going by, as the title implies, it's from a Westerner's perspective. So this guy from England or Britain, I don't know what people prefer. England, if I say England or Britain. I recently came across where I was reading comments for a YouTube video, and that was a little bit of a part of the comment. Someone was talking about, oh, thank you for saying it this way. We prefer it, to refer to our country as this and not. Although maybe they've been talking about people referring to it as that country as the UK. But anyway. And so I feel like it helps that we're only in Russian eyes in Crime and Punishment. And I was able to get more into that one. I had one other Joseph Conrad book, and I decided to get rid of it, which actually is a good thing because it made a dent on my shelf. A small dent, but still made a dent. But anyway, this was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be looking forward to reading Jamaica Inn at some point. And then I also have Mary Ann by her, which people don't know. That's the only one I hadn't heard of by Daphne du Maurier. I had heard, obviously, of Rebecca in this one, and then I've heard people mention Jamaica Inn, but I have not heard people talk about Mary Ann. So I almost feel like I should jump into Mary Ann next. because people don't talk about that one that much. So the last book I finished so far this month is After Alice by Gregory Maguire, who is known for his fairy tale retellings. He's the author of The Wicked Years, which is about the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West. And there's a play that goes with it called Wicked, the famous play by Stephen Sondheim. That is based on the book. Although the play is a little more lighthearted and fun rather than the book. The book is more darker, edgier, more political than the play. I mean, the play still has the elements of animals with a capital A conflict in it, but there's more in the actual book itself. There's more. It talks about it more, and it's even more involved in the story. Well, this is going by the title, it's about what happened after Alice went down the rabbit hole. And it's basically about Alice's friend Ada, who I read in the little part that talks about I think it's in here, the part that talks about before Alice, the whole thing about this character of Ada, her friend, is mentioned. I think this is where I read it. Is mentioned in the original books. So it's Ada's story and how she ends up following Alice down the rabbit hole. She escapes her governess, Miss Armstrong, and ends up following Alice down the rabbit hole, and basically is one step behind her. She meets all the residents of Wonderland that Alice met, and of course it's just as weird for her and nonsense-filled for her as it is for Alice. Although she's not as I said in my Goodreads summer description review, I feel like Ada's not as Miss Know-It-All as Alice is. One of the things that bugged me about Alice was that, although it's very true to kids, there are a lot of kids often think they know everything, and they act like a little know-it-all and stuff like that, and so I think that's accurate to kids, but, it did irritate me when I first read the original books, and I feel like I should reread them. I have a copy of it with both the first original story and Alice Through the Looking Glass. So it has Lewis Carroll's his whimsy and his silliness and his nonsense, and I think Maguire does a really good job at portraying the residents and the weirdness and eccentricities of the different characters that Alice meets, like the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, the Cheshire Cat, the Queen of Hearts, the White Queen, and the Duchess, all those characters. And I also like that Ada has a bit of a physical disability, like if you can tell on the cover in her silhouette, she wears kind of a back brace to fix her posture. But she ends up basically, when she goes down the rabbit hole, she ends up losing that device and and walks around Wonderland and it's just a part of her, like a part of who she is. It's not really made of a big deal. Like I said, she loses it when she goes down the rabbit hole, and it kind of does come back towards the end of the book in the finale. There's also another child character that goes down, or actually goes through the Looking Glass, like in the second book, in the sequel to Wonderland. And that kid is Siam, this little slave boy who was quote unquote rescued by an American man and taken as his little assistant. But of course, he's the kid who went through slavery, and his parents were killed. And he's just been through so much as a slave, so it still haunts him, and he's so young and cynical and afraid of the world around him. So it's very sad, what he goes through, and like I said, he also his reaction to Wonderland to this world is a little different than theirs. So, but I guess because he's not in there as much as Ada is, and Ada is the main character, so they don't mention. I don't think they mention that. They don't mention that in the on the back here. It was also interesting that and I didn't mention this in my Goodreads review, that there's kind of a reference to ancient literature in this. Like she reads, I think Paradise Lost or not or Dante's Inferno. She comes across that book and looks at the pictures because she can't read it, but she's able to look at the pictures, and she makes a lot of references to that and feels like, am I in the underworld in this when she goes into Wonderland? I think is very interesting. And I remember her governess, when she sees her looking at, she kind of freaks out a little bit and thinks her parents don't do a good job at taking care of her and watching her. We also get a little bit. This also is kind of has a bit of a historical fiction feel, not just the historical fantasy, but historical fiction, because we also get the perspective of Alice's older sister and Ada's governess. We like Lydia. They're in this. I don't know if this is how it was in the original book, but in this one, Alice's mom has died, and has died years ago, and so Lydia, Alice's older sister, even though I think she's 15. I think they say she's 15. She is kind of forced her dad expects her to watch over Alice, to take care of her, keep an eye on her. And she's the oldest female in the house, so she's kind of expected to take on the same role her mother did, but at the same time, she's not fully accepted in that role because she's still a kid herself. She's a teenager. And it's like she wants to be taken seriously, but at the same time, she's still so young and immature, and doesn't want have to have the responsibility for babysitting her little sister, who is always running off doing something and getting into trouble. And she's both of them are very young. It's hard. And I think a lot of times back in this time, in this era, kids were kind of dismissed and weren't taken as seriously. So I kind of felt bad at the same time. I kind of, I feel like I feel bad for Lydia, but I also think she's kind of bratty at the same time. But it was kind of interesting to just spend time, see her perspective, and in these kind of stories, you just have the child going into the magical world, and you don't know what happened in the aftermath, what's going on in the real world with the families that they left behind, how they're dealing with it, and what are they thinking, how are they reacting to their child has all of a sudden disappeared. And so it was kind of interesting to spend time with those characters, looking for them, looking for Alice, and then, Miss Armstrong, Ada's governess, freaking out and worried, I'm going to lose my job if I don't find this kid. She was also a character that kind of annoyed me at first, but then I also kind of felt bad for her because I understand she could lose her job. And this is her income. And she does, at one point, towards the end of the story, she does kind of have a little bit of a turnaround where I kind of liked her a little bit more. And so we get her and Lydia looking for them and being frantic, trying to find them. Lydia being very frustrated that once again she's stuck having to babysit her sister and find her sister, or she's going to get in trouble. And Miss Armstrong worried, I'm going to lose my job if I don't find this kid. And of course she finds this kid troublesome and wicked because she's always running off and getting into trouble and getting into mischief. And that's part of what annoyed me as someone, because I feel like they're kids. This is what they do. And then eventually they also have to look for Cyan too. Because like I said, he eventually ends up going into the magical world of Wonderland through the Looking Glass. So we get the original story, but through another person's perspective. I think is really cool. Like I said, Gregor Maguire does a good job at retelling these stories, but making them stories that are written that adults can enjoy and appreciate. like, again, there are adults who still like kids' books. I mean, I know a lot of adult readers who will still read middle grade. I mean, I still read it, but like as I've always said, I have to be in the right mood for it, because sometimes the things that show that I'm not the target audience, but younger people are the target audience. Sometimes those things do. I have to remind myself that I'm not the target audience, because sometimes those things irritate me. But I feel like if you still enjoy classics like the original Alice in Wonderland, it's because, for nostalgia reasons. I mean, I could be wrong, but because it's the original audience is kids. So I feel like Gregor Maguire, what he does is make these stories that originally were intended for kids, it makes them upgrades them to more adult books. Where was this? Okay, I'm trying to put this back, because I have a bad habit of, not putting the books back in their right spot. Okay, so this one is not on the shelf. Okay, I'm going to stand it for that one. I'll take care of that in a little bit. So, as of right now, like I said, I'm working on this. I'm going to read Act 3 either tonight or tomorrow, and then maybe start the next play, which is Ghost. I have taken a break from Pickwick Papers. I haven't read it lately. This one's a little more challenging, because it's not like it doesn't have a plot. I mean, it kind of has the, things that link the characters, the Pickwick Club resident members together, but it's all just like a bunch of stories, all like taking it's like a diary almost, the diary of the Pickwick Club, and all their adventures they've gotten up to on a daily basis. And the last one I read, which I don't know if it was Katie or I can't remember her name. There's another channel that I really like that I've been watching lately. I just watched one of her videos where she talks about Anne of Green Gables. I cannot think of her name at the moment, but I don't know if it was who I'm trying to remember, or Katie from Books and Things, who talked about how this is kind of, I heard from them what this is kind of like. And they had mentioned, one of them had mentioned about this, the last chapter I read, how at one point Samuel Pickwick ends up going over a fence and gets stuck in the yard of this home. Like, he receives, this manservant shows up and tells him and his manservant, whose name I can't remember, I think Weller, about how, is it Sam? I think is it Sam? Which, I guess that'll be interesting, because if they both have the name Sam, I did not realize that, but, that he was told, his manservant was told about from another, that his master and this woman that the guy's manservant did not like were going to run away together and elope, and he wanted to stop it. So Pickwick decides to get involved, and he's given the address, and he ends up going over the fence to try to sneak out. But then right away he realizes that they were kind of tricked, and it turns out it's a convent, I think, the home where he ends up. And he kind of scares the women of the convent, and they think he's a miscreant, or that he's dangerous or something. And so I thought that was kind of funny that he gets caught in that predicament. So these are silly and fun. It's just, it's a bunch of different stories in one. So it's a little off-putting at first, and I definitely feel like it's something you probably could get away with reading on and off and be fine. I mean, I just feel like I shouldn't do what I normally do, which is like a year or a few years in between readings. Like, I'm going to try not to do that. And also, so I have decided for some, so like I said, I've been kind of inspired to read different types of books lately. So, I've been meaning to get to Assassin's Princess, which is the third book in the Farseer trilogy, um, where Fitz is essentially on his own. He's kind of going on a self-searching kind of journey, a soul-searching type journey. I feel like he has to figure out things on his own. I'm on to chapter 7, and a lot of crap is going down in Buckkeep. Everything is falling apart, and Fitz is trying to, like I said, be on his own, figure out who he is on his own, and kind of become a man. His journey to becoming a man on this quest. And all I'm gonna say for spoilers is that I was so, like, at the end of the second book, I was very, like, upset that a character's beliefs were proven right in that one, and then it continues on in this book. The first book starts with what this character believed would happen has happened. It's the aftermath of that particular thing that, happened. And I was like, prove him wrong. Prove him that this wouldn't happen, and it does happen. It's like, no. Dang it. Ever since I've joined BookTube, I'm definitely more aware of book covers, and I try not to be a shallow person, and not to, I shouldn't say that, because it's not, nothing's wrong with if you are particular about your book covers, if you want a pretty cover. It's just, my priorities are, I just want to have the book. I'm not thinking about the cover, and so I take back the word shallow, even though I already put it out there, so I can't really take it back, but, I try not to think about covers, but now, ever since joining BookTube, I think more and more about covers, and I almost want the other types of covers where it just says the title, and the books are kind of brownish color with the title and this pretty design on it, but there's no, like, picture or anything, it's just the title in big letters. I like that one, although, now I do like my new version. I'm actually okay with what I got for the Live Ship Traders, the third book. Now my copy of the first book the cover is very 80s with its image on there, and then I feel like this is very 90s, and then that one was very 80s. Mad Ship cover. The cover for Mad Ship is very 80s, and then the cover for I ended up getting the third book without meaning to get the third book. I wanted to get the second book in the Live Ship Trader series. I got a third one, but unfortunately I kind of have to wait before I aim to get the second book. I'm trying to wait it out. And the good news is, it's unlike the Shakespeare collection of Shakespeare plays, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not, like, craving the need to buy it right now. But Fitz has met a few interesting people in this one, and so I feel so bad for the kid because he's kind of on his own, and these other people will not understand him. And although he has recently met someone who potentially could understand him, but because he has a goal in mind, he's been like, no, I can't stay and let you teach me. I need to finish out this goal. I have this responsibility. I have to do this thing that I need to do. And so he's like, I want to stay with you, but I can't be kept from my goal. And he's like, both him and Night Eyes just do not trust humans anymore. And that makes me so sad, because not all humans are bad, but in this world, a lot of humans are bad. A lot of them are very selfish, but I don't think all humans are like that. I mean, well, not all the humans in this world are. Like, there's a lot of good humans that he's met. It's just they can't entirely understand what Fitz is going through. Now, when I'm reading this, this is not what I'm picturing. I try to picture, when I read books, I always try to pick actors that I like, that I think could portray the characters. So they end up, especially if I don't like the image on the cover. I don't know why, I'm not a big fan of this image of this being what Fitz looks like when he's even older, because he looks like he's 40 in this one. 40 or in his 30s. Well, maybe 20s, I don't know. But I'm trying to picture actors, I think, but going by the descriptions, this is probably closer to what he would look like, the way Robin Hobb pictured him looking like. But anyway, but yeah, so far it's good. It's very interesting. Trying to get as much read as I can because we'll, but I don't know if that will happen. But the good news, I'm off tomorrow, so, and then the other book I was also inspired to start reading because actually, one of the booktubers I will occasionally watch on and off, her name's also Kate, I think, or Katie, and I do not know how to say her last name, but she's a booktuber. She reads a lot of anime related stuff, and sometimes we agree, sometimes I like what she says and we share similar tastes, but very few times. And she was talking about this book and how she didn't like it, so that was like, okay, now I'm gonna read it. Because I'm like, if someone doesn't really like something, if I spent the time to buy it, then I'm more determined than ever to like it. And which, I know everybody has different opinions, and I can be sensitive about that. Yeah, when there's crazy people who, sometimes I forget that, okay, it's just your opinion, you're not critiquing me. I've gotten better as I've gotten older and exposed myself more to people having different opinions than me. But it is still kind of has that awkward feeling of when someone disagrees with me, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be immature about this, and I don't want to have a stupid reaction. But then sometimes I'm like, I'm all set to thinking, oh, we're going to be on the same page here. And then they're like, well, I disagree. And it's like, okay, so what do I say now? Because you don't agree with me. How do I say, because I don't want to be immature and sound like I'm being like, how dare you not agree with me? Like, I don't want to come off that way, because I am aware that people have different opinions. But sometimes I just don't know how to react because I'm, all set to like, oh, we agree, or, sometimes if I'm not super passionate about the thing we're talking about, then I can do it. But I can be a bit immature about it and forget that, okay, you have a different opinion than me. Nothing's wrong with that. So it's something I need to work on. So she's like, oh, I don't like this book. I couldn't connect with the characters and everything. So it made me more inclined to be like, I spent the money and I bought this, even though, this is a mass market paperback edition. So it's not that, it was like, where's the price? $7.95. Yeah, because usually I think Books A Million, whatever price it says on the back of the book, that's what the price of the book is. So I go back and forth with buying these type of copies, these mass market, versus buying a regular size book, like this. I go back and forth with that because part of me is like, because part of me does really like those and definitely prefers those because they're, because I like these are more easily damaged. Like I got water because my dad gave me a drink and was like, oh, you'll like this, and I already spilled a little bit of water on the pages, and these can be easily ripped if you're not careful. But I still kind of like these. Oh, and then you will break the spines. Although I personally don't care about breaking the spines. It's not as big of a deal to me. I haven't broken my spines yet because I just started reading this last night. I guess it still was this morning because it was after midnight when I started reading this. But yeah, she's like, oh, I don't like this. I was like, okay, I'm gonna read it now because I want to, like I said, it makes me more determined to be like, okay, I spent the money, so I'm gonna like it, But this is by, I still do not know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I mean, my dad corrects me every time, but of course, it's not like, I don't say his name on a regular basis, so I won't necessarily remember if I'm saying Fyodor Dostoevsky. And it's about these brothers, and all three of them are very different. One of them is a monk, or has just become a monk. I just read that part. The other one is more of a learned man, and then the other one, I don't know much about him yet. And their biological father is kind of a douchebag. He's kind of a jerk. Although he ends up really liking Alosha or Alexei. He has like two names. He ends up liking him. Like everyone, this is the guy that everyone loves because he's so nice and such a good heart. So everyone just falls in love with him, and everyone likes him so much. And then of course he becomes a monk. He decides to become a monk. It's like, wow, you're just so good, and it's like, it's. So it's very interesting, and I'm on book 2. Like I said, I haven't gotten very far. I'm not one of those people who can read like 100 pages or 200 pages in one sitting, unless it's one of those, like a young adult book, or that really large print for some reason. I can read a lot of pages of that. But a book like this, especially a classic, I can't read that many pages in one sitting. I just can't. As much as I love reading. But I like I love Dostoevsky's writing style. And I do like Tolstoy's writing so far too. Of War and Peace, which I still have not gone back to. I need to, but I also need to get back to The Count of Monte Cristo. It's the problem. It's not that I'm not interested. It's just there's such a big commitment, and I keep thinking about all the other books I haven't read. So but one year I should just devote to classics. It's just very hard because, like, I don't, I want to get back to all my modern books that I haven't read yet. So I'm trying to, that's why I'm getting to all the, I'm trying to read all the short books. And finish some of my books that I've put on hold for a while. So I'm working on that one. And also, because I'm kind of reading the Pickwick Papers on and off, I think I'm going to go ahead and start Bleak House. I've just felt this desire to read that one, finally start that one again. But I'm trying to hold off, because I want to save it for October. But it's 800 pages, 800 plus pages. So I think I can get away with starting that one in September. Especially because I'm going to read other books at the same time. I also need to get back to Middlemarch. Like I said, The Count of Monte Cristo, and War and Peace. And just there's so many books that I've like. Those longer books, it just takes me so long to read them, and then I can't settle on them. I'll read a little bit, and then I'll be like, take a break, and sometimes it's a really long break in between. Like, it's been a long time since I read Count of Monte Cristo. But anyway, so my next video I'm going to film will probably be one of the book tags I just recently took notes for. I just did, I watched the Hamilton book tag again, because now that I have Disney Plus, I just got it back. I'm going to watch it again. I might watch it tonight. I think what I'll probably do is go eat my ice cream, then put on Hamilton and watch it before I go to bed. And the good news is I can stay up a little late tonight because I don't have to go to work. Yes! I am off finally tomorrow, but then I have to go back on Sunday and Monday, but then I'm off again on Tuesday. And not working as much next week, thankfully. This week was long and stressful, and exhausting. Even though really I mostly sanitize the carts. I'm basically sitting there scrubbing the carts, but I still kind of have to go back and forth a lot because I have to especially because when people see the carts sitting there, they think, oh, are these carts ready? Especially because everyone loves the smaller buggies, these smaller carts. They're like half the length of a regular shopping cart. People really love them because it's like they'll buy less things, and sometimes those are easier to push for the older people who have struggle with walking. So people really love those. So it's like I'm trying to get to those first, but then I have all the other regular carts to clean. So there's a lot. It's stressful. And then we have the lobby that I've been in the last few times is the bigger lobby, so there's even more carts. Even though there's a lot more space to spread out, there's more carts to worry about. So it's a bit exhausting, and I had to work a 6-hour shift on Thursday, starting at around 1. It was 1 to 7, so that was a really long day. I haven't done a 6-hour shift in a while. So it's nice to finally have a day off. And then, like I said, I work again Monday and Tuesday, but then I have Sunday and Monday, but then I have Tuesday off, and I think I have a lot more days off next week. So that'll be nice. It was also nice to hear that I actually got my, the time off I asked to have a little bit of a vacation time again. But anyway, okay, so, like I said, I'm definitely gonna read a little bit more. Oh, I forgot to mention, 5th season I'm working on as well. I'm probably gonna read that tonight in bed. Like I said, I'm getting more into it now that I've passed the number of pages I stopped at last time. It's a little off-putting the second person writing style, but I've gotten a little bit more into it. It's definitely it's a little bit more interesting. Like, we have 3 main perspectives. The perspective that is in second person is the character of SN, and she's an orogene, which people who can affect the earth, I believe. And people are afraid of her, and she has a husband, Jia, and 2 children, a little boy and then a little girl. And when she gets home, she finds her little boy is dead, and it's clear that her husband had murdered the little boy, and then he had taken their daughter with him. But Essen, the woman, has no idea if her daughter's alive, so she decides to go out searching for her, but she has to leave their little town, which is on lockdown at the moment. And she has to go on this quest to find her daughter, to see if she's alive, find her husband and her daughter, and get her revenge on her husband, because he killed her child, so it's like how, I don't think she could love him anymore. And then the other 2 perspectives are this woman named Cyanite. I think she's the woman who's probably like my age, maybe a little bit younger, like maybe my friend Larissa's age. And I think she's an orogene too, and she must have sex with another orogene so they can possibly make a baby, produce a child, and neither one of them really likes this idea. They hate each other, and he's gonna be her new mentor. I think his name's Alabaster, and they hate each other, and she's like frustrated because she has to do this and has to carry the child if they're successful, and that's a lot on a woman. So she's pretty pissed off about that. So I can't blame her, but he's also kind of mad because he doesn't want to do this. He feels kind of resigned to it, and the problem is that he can actually get out of this if he doesn't want to. So it's like, what right does he have to complain when he can get out of this? But it's more like he doesn't want the responsibility. He wants to be left alone. And that's what annoys him, is that he wants to go be left alone, but he knows that this is expected of him, but at the same time, he doesn't necessarily have to do it. He can get out of it more easily than she can. And then there's our other character is a young girl. It's probably like preteen age, and I think she's also an orogene, or she might be something else. And her parents are afraid of her. They're afraid of her hurting her little brother, or either her little brother or older brother, I can't remember. So the parents sell her off to a guardian who's supposed to control her and do what needs to be done if she loses control. In other words, if he has to kill her, he will. So he takes her and he's all nice to her and be like, oh, don't worry, I'll protect you and everything. But then he shows that at the same time, yeah, I like you and want to help you, but at the same time, if you cross the line and lose control, then I will kill you. You know, and it's kind of the tough love mentor situation. So far, it's very interesting. I'm still trying to figure out all of this stuff, like everybody. I mean, it's one of those stories, as other people have warned me, that they just throw you in there. You don't know much about what's going on. You're just kind of thrown into this world and you have to figure out. And I have been told that eventually I'll put it all together and figure it out eventually. But I'm glad I finally am reading it. It's really interesting now that I've gone past the first little bit, the first 100 to 50 pages. I should actually say the first 50 to 100 pages. And I'm definitely curious to see what's going to happen. So I'm going to read a little bit tonight in bed. Of course, by the time I get around to it, it might be already midnight when that happens. Okay, so that is what's going on with my reading. Like I said, I'm going to probably do the Hamilton book tag. I'm going to film that tomorrow and possibly film this other book tag, the book addiction tag, as well. So I don't know yet. Let's see how I feel tomorrow, what's going to happen tomorrow. So I guess I will talk to you guys later. If you want to share what's going on with your reading, feel free to share in the comments below. If you like this, be sure to give a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you are continuing to stay safe and doing what you can for the Black Lives Matter movement and doing what you can to make sure you're healthy and not risking yourself to COVID-19. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye!